Okay, do we still have you online, Hans?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. So welcome to the, what month are we? July. July.
Well, it keeps changing, so
July
why pay
2025
attention?
Sustainability Lab. This month we have a special guest from, are you in Boston, Hans?
Yep, I'm in Boston.
Presenting from Boston, we have Hanz Atia from the Product Institute, and she's going to talk to us about extended producer responsibility and some activities that are going on in Missouri and Illinois. The PSI is a nationwide organization, but they have state chapters or branches, but she'll explain a little bit of that as we go along. So with that, I will let Hans take over and give us a presentation. Thanks, Hans.
Thanks, Aaron. Um, can you hear me okay?
We can hear.
All right, wonderful. Let's get started. Thanks all for being here. Um, so, um, my name is Hanz Atia. I'm an associate policy and programs for the Product Stewardship Institute, or PSI. So I work on a range of products, including batteries, pharmaceuticals, vapes, medical sharps, just to name a few. And I help facilitate the Missouri Product Stewardship Council. And I also support PSI's work to develop and implement extended producer responsibility programs across the country. Um, so Today we're going to be focusing on the Missouri Product Stewardship Council, or the Missouri PSC. So the Missouri PSC was founded in 2018 with support from PSI and funding from the St. Louis, Jefferson, and Mark Solid Waste Management Districts. The council represents a coalition of local governments, businesses, and other stakeholders committed to reducing waste, increasing reuse and recycling, saving local governments money, and supporting local jobs. So right now, the PSC is focused on 5 different product areas: paint, pharmaceuticals, tires, batteries, mattresses, and we have monthly meetings facilitated by PSI staff, who is myself. So I just wanted to briefly explain what the Product Stewardship Institute is, and a little bit about our work. So PSI is a policy expert and consulting nonprofit organization that's working to power the emerging circular economy and ensure products are responsibly managed from design to end of life. So PSI was founded in 2000, and we've worked to help pass and enact EPR, extended producer responsibility, or EPR programs across the United States. We do this by working with government, academia, nonprofits, and industry to ensure that products are responsibly managed from design to end of life. So the Missouri PSC conducts monthly meetings with expert guest speakers. We have executive committee meetings that coordinate meeting agendas, provide direction for the PSC, work group meetings that feature guest speakers on work group topics, strategy meetings, and coordinate our next steps. So one of the things we heavily focus on is education. So access to webinars, tabling, presentations, educational materials, web development, legislative testimony, pilot projects, you name it. Quite an active group. Currently, we have 5 active work groups addressing different product categories, as I said. So paint is one we're very excited about because we've had legislation introduced in the last 4 years. And this year is the closest it's gotten yet to passing, passed unanimously in both the House and the Senate in Missouri. The pharmaceuticals work group focuses on outreach and education for existing infrastructure. And we've also piloted a mail-back program. For mattresses, we're working on discussing timelines, bill sponsors, and we have industry support for the work group and for legislation. Then for tires, we've been conducting research on how to improve Missouri's existing scrap tire program, developed recommendations as a result. And finally, batteries. Legislation was introduced this past year, and we are supporting introduction for this upcoming year. So each work group tackles the unique challenges and opportunities for these, for for each of these specific product categories. So just wanted to give you a current landscape of how far EPR has come in the United States. So in 2000, when PSI was founded, there were only 8 EPR laws in place across 7 states. All of these were related to one product category, batteries. And today there are 146 laws across 21 different product categories in 35 states and the District of Columbia. So this just represents the tremendous growth and demonstrates the increasing recognition of EPR as an effective policy solution. And yeah, the momentum's continued to build, as we can see in 2025. 27 states considered 70 unique EPR bills covering 18 different product categories. So far, 4 have become law, bringing the total US EPR laws to 146, sorry. So the 4 that were passed, 2 were for packaging in Maryland and Washington, and 2 are for portable batteries in Colorado and Nebraska. In addition to these 70 bills, there are various other major amendments and companion bills that were introduced and passed this legislative session. For example, amendments to Washington's pharmaceutical law and solar panels EPR laws. So over the past 2 decades, PSI's unique multi-stakeholder approach to policy development has helped enact US EPR laws. And this chart just demonstrates the steady growth since our founding, and just demonstrates the effectiveness of this collaborative approach, which has really propelled this forward. Okay, so we're going to define some key terms for anyone who maybe isn't as familiar with product stewardship or EPR. So product stewardship is the act of minimizing the health, safety, environmental, and social impacts of a product and its packaging throughout all of the life cycle stages of the product, while also maximizing economic benefits. So product stewardship can be either voluntary or required by law. There are some voluntary programs like industry-funded and managed programs, for example, Recycle's National Rechargeable Battery Collection Program. And there are some mandatory programs like pesticide registration fees, industry-funded and managed programs, and government-managed programs as well. So unlike voluntary programs, which can have free riders where different organizations maybe are contributing to the problem but not paying their fair share, EPR levels the playing field among competitors and incentivizes environmentally conscious design. So EPR is a mandatory type of product stewardship. It requires that manufacturers pay for and manage programs with government oversight to collect, reuse, recycle, and safely dispose of products and packaging. So by doing so, because the manufacturers are required to pay, it incentivizes them to reduce the impacts of their products, which also incentivizes them to make them more recyclable, taking environmental impacts into consideration throughout the product and the packaging design. I just want to pause and see if there's any questions.
We have one question in the room.
Hans, the 5 working groups, I was curious how those specific products were chosen.
Yeah, that's a great question. I also want to mention that in the audience, we do have several Missouri PSC members, including our chair. So, Angie, I hope you don't mind chiming in if I ask at some point, but also no pressure if not. So one of the ways that the Missouri PSC determined these priority products was through surveys, discussion. We've done product prioritization surveys several times. So essentially, we're asking members to rank products by different categories on like cost to manage, difficulty to manage, and then also looking at how viable is it to change the way that these products are managed. Yeah, do you have anything you want to add, Angie?
No, I think that covers it. I would also say sometimes it's organic, like the battery work group. We made a presentation and then it just kind of happened. But for the most part, it was a survey process where we asked all the questions that Hanz mentioned and came up with top materials that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question. So this is just a list of the different product categories that are currently covered under EPR programs across the US. So tires and household hazardous waste are the newest, some of the newest product categories. The first two EPR laws passed in 2023 for those. And then boat wrap, which isn't on the slide, is the newest edition, which passed in Minnesota last legislative session. So just want to show this slide to demonstrate the expanding scope of EPR and how it can address these more challenging waste streams. So EPR programs can be financed through two different approaches. There's cost internalization and consumer fees. So cost internalization requires manufacturers to internalize post-consumer management costs into the cost of doing business. So they're invisible to the consumer and retailer, although those costs may end up being passed on to the consumer. And then consumer fees allow manufacturers to pass on a fee through the retailer to the consumer, which is often visible for post-consumer product management costs. An example of this for paint care, for example, and I think Illinois might, if you ever see like a 5-cent charge per gallon of paint for paint management, that's an example of that visible fee. So now that we've heard a little bit about what EPR is, we can move on to why it can serve as a solution for proper end-of-life disposal for hard-to-manage products. So EPR provides sustainable, ongoing funding to manage covered products. This reduces local government and taxpayer costs to manage these products, and through various mechanisms, EPR incentivizes waste reduction, reuse, and recycling. So incentives such as sustainable design of products, performance goals, fee structures, which are typically built into a law or program. EPR also increases and ensures convenient collection opportunities. A lot of programs involve education requirements, so helps consumers learn how to handle these products at the end of their life, like where to take them. Increases transparency on how waste is being handled through reporting, and the programs prevent free riding. So, yeah, essentially, EPR ensures that all relevant stakeholders are accountable in the program, and that relevant entities are part of the program to properly manage products at the end of their useful lives. All right. So I'm gonna start talking about like different products individually, but any questions? Any other questions?
I'm here.
So we're gonna look at some of the Missouri PSC's initiatives, starting with paint. So paint care is, for example, in Minnesota, it's an industry-supported program that collects unused paint. Retailers really like it because it gets people in the door. Those are a lot of collection sites are through retailers, as you can see with these, the blue dots on the left map of Minnesota. And taxpayers are not paying for paint disposal through their local governments or HHW facilities. and the paint recyclers benefit because they are able to get a lot more paint. So just these two maps show the extensive network of collection sites available to Minnesota residents where there is an EPR law. And on the right, we can see in Missouri, existing paint collection sites that accept both latex and oil-based paint. So it's a lot more sparse, and a paint program could definitely help fill in with some of those gaps. So currently there are paint laws in 12 states plus Washington, D.C. And then this year, 4 states, including Missouri, introduced paint EPR bills this session. So, and as you can see here in green, Illinois does have a paint care program. Just curious if anyone from Illinois has used it, like dropped off their paint somewhere at a local hardware store. Yeah. Yeah. So, that's through paint care. Just thinking about, yeah.
Sorry, Hans, quick question. What is paint recycling? What do they do with it?
It's a good question. So my basic understanding is, depending on like the type of paint, they're able to take it and like, I think take the color out, and like then I think most paints, like the color is re-added when you like get it out of the shop. So I think it's taking unused paint and making it reusable. Sorry, I don't know too much more about it.
Yeah, Hans,
I can get back to you on that.
Hans, you're correct. We just had a paint collection event over the weekend, and I was talking to the people collecting it, and that's what they said. They use like a centrifuge or something to remove the pigment, so they get like blank paint again. They can't retail it, but I guess they have sources that can take the paint and recolor it and use it. I'm not sure what the collection people didn't have all the answers, but you're correct in saying that they can remove the color and paint and use the paint.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, great question. And I guess the one of the things to consider is the alternative, or one of the alternatives for like how paint, unused paint is like very often, like most places will say just let it dry out and then like throw it away. Which, there's a lot of paint that are probably sitting in people's basements that could be there for decades, and it's a lot of paint that could potentially be recycled and reused with these programs.
This whole conversation, everything we're talking about only applies to latex paint. Oil paint is a hazardous waste, and you got to take it to one of the facilities, a hazardous waste collection facility.
Yeah, as far as the recycling.
Yeah. I don't think they can, right, they can't recycle oil-based.
And yeah, one of the other issues with paint is that it's pretty expensive to manage. It can get messy, as we can see in these pictures here, which were provided by Missouri PSC members. Just some of the challenges in paint management that went along with feeling the need for comprehensive solutions. So, paint spills affecting our environment, lack of infrastructure. It's not, it would be great to not have paint in, groundwater as it's collected or ending up in landfill. And so these are just some of the results of the paint care program. So after about 15 years, these are just some of the convenience and recovery outcomes. So over 70 million gallons of paint have been collected from 2,400 sites. 98% of people in a paint care state live within 15 miles of a year-round site. They've had over 10,000 large volume pickups. And in California, nearly 10% of the paint in 2023 was picked up directly as part of a large volume pickup. And then for recyclability, 76% of latex paint is recycled back into paint. So approximately 80% of discards are able to put back into purpose, with the rest responsibly managed. Okay. So just also wanted to touch on education. I think the educating people about the benefits of an EPR program and EPR generally, product stewardship, is one of the things that the Missouri PSC does. So develop materials for retailers, local government, and public to demonstrate how a paint EPR program would provide benefits. And then this a 2-page spread is an example from Missouri Life magazine, where we provided information about what a paint EPR program brings to the state. In addition, if you go on with the Missouri PSC paint resources page, we have additional flyers, recordings, and information about paint stewardship. And then, yeah, I already mentioned this, but this year was the closest we got in Missouri to passing a paint bill. And if you're in Illinois, jealous. Hope you're enjoying that. The paint recycling. I'm in Massachusetts, and we do not have a paint care bill, or we have a bill that was introduced this year as well, but I'm like, we really want a program. So yeah, these bills are supported by the American Coatings Association, which represents the paint industry. So this is just to say that, these programs are not opposing industry. Like, the industry is coming and working on creating these because it does provide a lot of different benefits. Yeah, we are working to make this next session the one for Missouri. So how can you help? Yeah, if you are interested in joining the EPR, the paint work group, definitely let us know. You can help us by spreading the word to others in your community, talking to your legislators, city council members about the benefits of this program. And again, just let me know if you have any questions about paint. And I think our paint work group chair couldn't be here today. Her name is Naja. But next we have pharmaceuticals. And so Angie is our pharmaceutical work group chair. So Angie, if you have any thing you want to mention, if I forget anything, definitely please feel free to chime in. So pharmaceuticals, again, Illinois has a pharmaceutical EPR law. The first two laws passed in 2016, both in Massachusetts and Vermont. In the US right now, there are 8 states with laws and 23 local laws. So these programs, again, funded by drug manufacturers. Pharmaceuticals was a challenging subject because of regulations around how they're collected and managed. So in order to allow for collection outside of police stations for pharmaceuticals, their PSI led national meetings. So starting in 2008, after 8 years, passage of a federal act, which was the Secure and Responsible Drug Disposal Act, there needed to be changes to the federal rules by the DEA, a Supreme Court case, to allow for this legal framework change that make these programs possible. And I also want to note that California's law includes EPR for medical sharps, which is the only one of its kind in the country. All right, so this map just shows some of the differences between different types of different types of like product stewardship for pharmaceuticals. So in Washington State, we have an EPR funded program. I also want to note the reason that I included like topography was because there are lots of mountains in Washington. And if there's like a giant mountain, you're not going to have a collection site there where nobody's living. So the coverage for programs are based off of population typically. In Colorado, we have a state-funded program. So one of the challenges with the state-funded program is that if the legislature decides to cut funding for that program, it kind of creates some gaps. In Missouri, there's our voluntary pharmaceutical take-back programs. So one of the major activities we do in the pharmaceutical work group is outreach and education. So we have a number of educational materials such as social media content, bus advertisements, magazines, postcards, posters. And we've created a map, interactive map to help people find take-back programs near them. So yeah, if you want to scan the QR code, you can find those programs. Illinois' pharmaceutical program also has its own map. One of the challenges of some of the earlier programs, and Illinois is one of the more recent ones, is that these programs are run by two different organizations that are producer responsibility organizations that don't necessarily get along. So there's more recent laws have requirements that they have a collaborative website to help people find different sites, whereas in some of the older laws, they will each have their own website, which will have different sites, but it can be a little bit confusing as, just somebody who wants to drop off their meds for proper disposal. All right, so next is batteries. Batteries is a pretty active work group, and for very good reason. So it's also just really kicked off across the country. Illinois' battery law passed in 2024. The other more recent laws for this year, Colorado, Nebraska. Recent laws have moved to an increasingly broad scope of batteries. So a wider range of what's covered between like single primary and single use and rechargeable batteries. So originally in the first EPR laws that were passed in 2000, these batteries were pretty limited in scope. So it just means that as time has gone on, technology's developed, these laws need to be updated with current best practices, lessons learned, and take into consideration the new types of batteries that we're commonly seeing. So these laws are also supported by the industry, so the Battery Association. And just want to cover for anyone who's maybe not as familiar with batteries and like why they're so hazardous and why we need battery EPR. We're seeing growing use of batteries in an expanding range of products. So a lot of these issues are fire safety, fire hazards when batteries are improperly disposed, damaged. They can be crushed in like trash compactors, resulting in different, facilities, worker safety issues, and a lot of the batteries that are contained in products are not recycled, end up in solid waste streams, and that's also a loss of critical minerals that could be recovered and reused if they were in a program that allowed for that. So the battery work group, the Missouri PSC, is working on discussions around consensus and improvements for a battery bill to introduce this next session, reflecting on other national bills like Illinois and addressing issues like vape products. So if you're interested in learning or joining the work group, definitely please, let us know. We'd love to have you engage with some of these discussions. And I can just take another pause because, yeah, I think.
So the Missouri bill for batteries has not been introduced yet, or?
There was a bill introduced this past session. That was there are some elements of it that were missing, that are not missing from some of the other bills, such as Illinois, which is based off of like a model bill that we developed alongside industry. So, it's not that it's a bad bill, but it is missing some elements that would make it a much stronger and more robust program.
Okay. Like Hans said, if anyone is interested in any of these working groups, they can email me or to the 1STL email, and I'll make the connection for you if you don't. We'll ask Hans for her, or we'll put Hans's email in the chat before the end too, so you can email her directly. We had another question in the room.
Yeah, Hans, I'm seeing lots of images of alkaline batteries. I see your vape pilots reference, but what I'm wondering is about lead acid and EV batteries. So lead acid batteries has been an example of EPR for many a year now. In fact, whenever I do storytelling on this topic, I use lead acid batteries because it's real and effective. So I'm wondering if you can speak to the different battery, I guess, types, and if this really is focused on alkaline, which from all understanding is really hard to recycle.
Yeah, so these are not focused on alkaline. They are typically under 5 pounds for like small format battery, I believe. Lead acid batteries, yeah, that's thanks for bringing that up, because they're excluded in most of the these EPR programs, or most of the most recent EPR laws, because there are existing programs for the batteries in cars. And I guess one example is in Pennsylvania, there was a battery EPR bill introduced last year, I believe, that excluded lead acid batteries, but because there was a lack of understanding around that, the bill was opposed and ended up not going through because of that. But in the last year, there's been more understanding around what isn't covered. As far as EV batteries, that's a very good question, and there have been bills introduced, and one bill has passed in New Jersey to address EV batteries. Yeah, I'm not sure if you've seen, there's a really interesting EPA, US EPA webinar around large format EV batteries. And one of the interesting takeaways that I kind of came away with that was because EV batteries are a much higher value battery than some of these smaller devices, like a vape, for example. Vapes have other issues. I can talk about those also if you want, but these smaller devices, they're just less valuable to recycle. So it's a lot less likely that there is going to be incentive from industry to actually collect them and manage them properly without these kinds of programs in place. Whereas with EV batteries, those can be more easily reused as a battery energy storage system. And they are much more dangerous if they are not properly managed. Yeah. I don't know do you have any follow-up questions?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Dangerous. I think that's a good keyword to kind of focus on. So there's a risk factor to batteries. Is that helping the cause, the conversation around specific batteries? Like obviously there's a risk factor to pharmaceuticals, but that's a lot harder of a play with tires and mattresses, for example.
Yeah.
And it's in the news. Like folks know that house fires and et cetera, and traveling, like batteries are impactful in that whole experience. So yeah, it sounds like I'm talking over your answer, but yes, that is helpful for trying to get extended producer responsibilities.
Yeah. I think one of the big shifts in support for battery EPR has been a result of the fires impacting like waste management industry. That's kind of why I touched on like waste haulers, recyclers, because their facilities are being damaged, and that is really, really expensive. Like their insurance rates have gone up substantially. If there's like any, one fire can be millions of dollars in damage, and it also just impacts like a whole community's ability to manage their waste. So it's definitely been a driver of getting different stakeholders involved. Whereas in the past, with some other products, like, yes, it would provide benefit to like that industry, but they weren't as inclined to get involved and like actually participate in some of like dialogues or show support. Um, and I think a really good example of that is what happened in Missouri with the bill. And like one of the reasons it was introduced this past year was a stakeholder from the a waste association came to our meetings and was like, oh yeah, you should do that. And pretty much ended up getting introduced through that, which is great. That there is this interest in this drive that I think with other products, the danger doesn't feel as imminent and it doesn't feel like quite as big. I think like, there's a lot of different products that do cause like long-term environmental uh, uh, damage that, I think it's just a little bit harder to show that cause and effect with some of those products. Whereas with batteries, it can be pretty clear when there's a fire that is like a direct cause of it. Yes.
Go ahead, Cassie.
So I have two questions that might be related. As someone who I'm not active at all in kind of the political or lobbying space, like what does it actually look like to start as an advocate and be like clearly this is working in many communities and is kind of the future of responsible management for a lot of these problem materials. How does it actually kind of move through the process into actually becoming a law and a program? And kind of related for the communities and municipalities that are stuck with the cleanup bills with the tires and the mattresses and all of the problems that are related to those like key problem items. Are they able to sue the companies, or is that like a really hard thing to just say to identify like all the mattress companies and bring a lawsuit to them?
Yeah. It's a really good question. I think I'll start with the second question because I can think of an example of like Niagara County, New York, has a big issue as being like a dumping ground for the state. And one of the things that they were struggling with, and I think still have issues with, is solar panels. Solar panels are really difficult to manage end of life, so they're expensive. Not as much like profit from like recycling and like managing those. So they created like a local EPR program or law, and that was the first EPR for solar panels was in Niagara County to address that. There's a number of other smaller like local laws that have passed around EPR to address these. As far as suing, sorry,
Hans, who had the solar panel EPR?
Niagara
Uh,
County.
Niagara County. And
And-
then I wanted to say I was in one of the tire working group meetings, and they talked about a dumping location for tires in Missouri. They used security cameras from around the site, and they were able to find out who dumped it, and they sued the dumper, not the tire company.
yeah, in Connecticut. Connecticut
For,
is
for those
only
really hyper local laws, does that mean that anyone who sells solar panels in that community needs to pay a certain amount to cover the cleanup program?
yeah. So I believe it'd be modeled after like a state program in that I'm kind of like blanking on Niagara County specifically, but like yeah, the manufacturers would pay into a system that would manage the products at end of life. They'd be responsible for taking like for any damaged or defective solar panels, removing them from like the homes and like actually paying for that type of like disposal, rather than uh yeah, rather than putting that on like other parts of the stream. But um I think uh let's see. Um yeah. For the local laws, one of the challenges can be that like manufacturers don't necessarily feel the same level of um like incentive to participate, because like in a state there's just a lot more power to like sue, for example, whereas a smaller like a local area may not have that same kind of like leverage. That said, in California, where these local laws started, what happened was like one passed a law and then another, and then there were like five and then 10, and then the industry said like, we don't want to deal with all of these different local laws that keep popping up, and they're all different, and it's very hard for us to like deal with reporting. So that is kind of how California ended up with a statewide law. So I say that because I don't want to like discourage anyone from like thinking a local law can't make a difference, because it really can, especially when like a lot of different local localities have this kind of chain reaction. And yeah, it's definitely motivation for manufacturers to address those concerns and like participate. Yeah, some industries have definitely been more inclined to have like to support programs than others. Um, I know you had another question, but I'm totally blanking on it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was just like how with the processes to move from like this is a great idea to actually having it pass and be enforced.
Yeah. So yeah, it can be a long process. For a new product, like it's a totally different process than like for batteries. There is a model bill that has been developed through facilitated dialogue between like states, different states, different local governments, industry, um, stakeholders, to actually have like a bill that everybody agrees with before it's even introduced, so that opposition is not, it's been addressed. And that's how, like, for example, in Nebraska, it passed in 1 year, which is great. I think there's just so much variation between how state like legislatures work and like some of those intricacies that it really varies. Like with Missouri, the paint bill got very close. It passed unanimously with like no opposition, but it did not make it like out of it didn't make it to its like final perfection hearing. So have to start over again next year.
And I want to give you guys a plug because I've been going to the meetings when I can, and it just seems like the committee work that's going on in Missouri through the PSI is pretty active and pretty intense, and there's a lot of people that really care. So I think it might be simple, but saying, approaching PSI and saying, let's do a working group on a particular topic would be like a first step. Because I mean, through the PSI, they have all of the other states' samples there ready to pass along, and they've been a good source, it seems.
One of the other things that PSI does is we have government strategy calls. So we get different government members together to discuss like a specific product. So we have packaging, batteries. Sure, we have others, but those are two of the ones that I've been involved with in varying degrees. See a question from Froggy.
Froggy, you're up next.
Yeah. So this is kind of an all over the place question. I guess the first part of it is, you were talking about how you determine what groups or categories of products to target. And is the case right now that there's just so many products and product categories out there that need to be targeted that the logical thing is to shoot for the ones where you're going to have significant industry like collaboration? Or is there any argument for targeting ones that have the greatest environmental or social harm, for example? I could understand why, like the low-hanging fruit idea being a way to like gain momentum. Are there other thought processes going on with like approaches? And also the other part of the question is just like what does it look like when you run into resistance from an industry or from players in the industry to the idea of extended responsibility? And what's that look like? Can you give some examples of what that's looked like in terms of how you navigated that?
Yeah. So I think there's a few different ways as far as bills, how those are developed. Like I think the start of the bill typically it comes from someone or like group of people who are concerned about a particular product. So we do is listen to our government members about like what do you need to address? What is of concern for whatever reason. It might be like batteries are causing a lot of fires. People want to like don't want to just dump their products like for sharps. A lot of people end up collecting them in their like garages because it doesn't seem right to throw them in the trash. And providing some sort of way to do that was like a priority. For example, in California, there's been other states that have introduced bills, but yeah, that's it's one. The pharmaceutical industry tends to be pretty opposed to EPR programs. So, I mean, I think that's kind of a good example of like, we've tried to engage with them, but they're typically not as favorable. Some of that has to do with like the actual like the way that pharmaceuticals are in different laws or bills. There's usually like an allowance for the producer responsibility organization to determine how they want to set up the structure for their members. The problem is that the majority of pharmaceuticals are generics, and those have like the smallest profit. So there is some concern from like generic manufacturers that they're going to end up paying like most of the program, but they're actually not making that much money, and it that was a big concern. I think like there's been some discussion since like they were originally started, but I don't know. It's just to give you an example of like, yeah, finding out like what those smaller details that are being opposed, and then like having discussions to figure out how those can be addressed, is one way that we've tried to, move things forward. I mean, most industry was not a fan when they first heard of this. But like for a product like paint, for example, paint industry supported, it's very expensive for local government to collect and dispose of. And yeah, we kind of call it like the gateway to EP for some states, because it's like the Missouri bill, for example, is sponsored by two different Republicans. It's like nonpartisan issue. It saves taxpayers money. It's industry supported. It creates jobs. Like there's a lot of benefits to these programs. So yeah, paint is like an easy one, but I think batteries are also becoming a much easier one. Just because there's interest in like proper management. Yeah, I'll stop rambling.
Hanz, we have one more working group to cover.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Great questions. Thank you. So yeah, I just wanted to move on to tires and then mattresses. So really quickly, tires, the work group was founded in 2024. What we've primarily been doing is looking at the Missouri scrap tire program's existing program and developing recommendations for improvement. And just kind of like for a number of reasons, tires are not the easiest of products to pass. So long term, tire EPR is the goal, but for the short term, developing recommendations for the scrap tire program. Currently, Missouri's fee is like one of the lowest in the region. So then mattresses, I think our mattress work group chair is here. I saw Barbara a little while ago. I don't know if she's still here, but
I'm
just
here.
Oh, hi, Barbara. Yeah, if you want to chime in at all, definitely please feel free.
Okay, you go right ahead, and then if I want to add anything, I will. You're doing an excellent job.
Oh, thank you. So currently there's 4 mattress EPR laws in the US. And so these programs are just, demonstrate how some of these bulky products are viable for EPR programs. The work group structures are typically monthly meetings. We have guest speakers and dialogue to identify barriers, opportunities, and a few of the goals of the work group include infrastructure efforts for landfill diversion, improving Missouri's end markets and recycling, and ultimately the goal is a mattress EPR program. This one was a short one, so if you have anything you want to add, Barbara.
You've heard some discussion about the importance of having industry either at least on your side or not going to oppose it, preferably being very interested and supportive, and in some cases just taking the lead. In this case, industry is both landfill owners and operators and haulers, kind of like the battery thing. They have a vested interest in this because mattresses take up much more wasted space in landfills, and they're hard to handle. So that costs them money. Every time they put a mattress in the landfill, they get a little bit of something for the tonnage, which of course they don't weigh commensurate to their size, but they take up an inordinate amount of space and you can't compact them. They just keep bouncing back. So in that regard, it behooves landfill owners and operators and waste haulers to get behind an initiative to recycle the mattresses. And I think also mattresses are one of those things that anything you try to recycle is subject to the volatility of the recycling markets, and mattresses suffer from that same as well. So with that in mind, and I've kind of done some consulting work in this, but in that in mind, I advise anybody looking at this not to consider what they're going to sell the pieces for, the recyclables. If this thing won't cash flow, which means you're going to have a fee on the front end, if it won't cash flow without selling the materials, I wouldn't advise anybody to get into it. So the whole idea of EPR helps mitigate some of the impact of the volatility of these recycling markets. And I think, to me, this is where the future is. Recycling is important, and it's a use or a step toward a use. But the market volatility just makes it so risky. So if we can put the responsibility back on the people who generate these things in the first place to help dispose of them and defray that cost, now we're getting somewhere. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Barb. Yeah.
Besides, I have a question about mattresses. It just seems like so many new mattresses are just the foam as opposed to traditional mattresses that have different materials in them.
Yes.
Does there need to be separate conversations about the different kinds of mattresses, or is it okay to lump them all together?
To lump them all together, because they're pretty much all in the same boat. In some of them there are some metal, some steel, and in some there's some wood. There's foam, there's textile, but pretty much all of those, with the possible exception of metal, suffer from this volatility. And foam is one of those. From time to time, there's good foam markets. We enjoyed good foam markets in Southwest Missouri for years, and then all of a sudden that dried up. So I don't know that it makes a lot of difference about the type of mattress, because at one time or another, all of the contents can be problematic. That's just the nature of the recycling business. Another thing I would mention too, and I'm sorry, I forgot this, and I'll come back to your question if that didn't answer it. When I also talked about industry, the other industry is the Mattress Recycling Council, which represents the mattress industry, and they have stepped up here as well. So sometimes we enjoy the luxury, I guess I would say, of talking about a material that is problematic to kind of a wide variety of people or interests, and that certainly helps when you're trying to work on a bill and you're trying to get some legislation passed. Sorry. Now, did I answer your question?
Yeah, it was a yes or no.
Okay.
I didn't know that kind of memory foam would have a aftermarket.
Yes.
Even if it's volatile.
If you're lucky, it does. And as I said, the one we had in Southwest Missouri kind of dried up. We're hoping it comes back, which, in this business, it could very easily could.
I think the mattress EPR, the existing programs cover all mattresses except for I think it was cribs, maybe baby mattresses.
That might have been.
But yeah, regardless of what it's made of.
Okay, we have a question in the room.
Hanz, you mentioned that Missouri's tire fee is one of the lowest in the area or region or whatever.
Yeah.
How is a tire fee any different than what we're speaking to? Like I assume that's a waste disposal fee, right?
No, it's yeah, Missouri scrap tire fee. It goes towards like enforcement uh of like tire management. So to like mitigate illegal dumping or like review.
So who's
Um,
paying that? Is that a consumer fee or is that a manufacturer fee?
so in addition to that, like 50 cents per tire in Missouri, uh, if you take your tires to like a tire place, like a get to change them, you pay like $2, $2 to $5, to actually have them like take them away to dispose of them. So that's kind of where that illegal dumping comes in, is when um, someone is collecting the tires saying that they're taking them to like a recycler and then just dumps them and pockets the money. Which, on a large scale, it adds up quite a bit. Um,
So just to make sure I'm clear, this is a post usage fee and EPR would be a pre-usage fee.
yeah, so with an EPR program, what would be covered would be like the collection. The existing program also has some restrictions on like the end, how the tires can be used at end of life. So, in some cases, like waste to like incineration is like a possibility, rather than recycling. So like EPR programs might include a requirement that like a certain amount or a certain percentage is actually recycled. And yeah, so like if it's a cost internalized program, then the consumer would not like see a visible fee. If it's not, then yeah, it would be like per tire, probably like some amount at time of sale. Um, yeah. Uh, any Yeah, Natalie just put some information in the chat about Missouri's tire program. Um, yeah. Tires are a very interesting one. It's very different across different states. And like, yeah, they are able to be like recycled. But there's just a lot of issues with like illegal dumping, especially in rural areas where there isn't access to collection or drop-off locations.
Okay, we have another question in the room.
Look, yeah, like I just want to know like how EPR policy encourages like the factories or the producer who make the mattress. So is there any role of EPR policies to suggest them to make a sustainable redesign or reuse, or like what are the EPR policies there that encourages such producers to redesign the mattress in a sustainable way? So I just want to know like is there any a collaboration with the like other producers for like taking these policies together like and making like more sustainable products that easily recyclable. And you also talk about the batteries like lithium, which easily catches the fire. So that in that case also like EPR targets the redesigning and like making reuse for some policies with the producer as well. Like, is there any collaboration with them? Is there any talks going on with them as well?
Did you catch that, Hans?
I caught some of it.
The question is about is when you're working on EPR, are you having discussions with the manufacturers about making their products more recyclable? Did I get that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question. I think one of the ways that like, so industry doesn't really like to be told what to do. Um, and some states have like successfully included eco fees that do incentivize changes in design. So, a product that is going to be like more detrimental to the environment or like more expensive to dispose of um, might be more costly. And that like if that is in the law, then the PRO who is overseeing like the different organizations in the industry that are or the different manufacturers, they can set those rates, but I think like some of it is like left open-ended as like a suggestion more than as like a hard rule, because if it's like um yeah, some states just don't like they don't want to make a law that's going to have like so much opposition it's not going to pass. I think California, Oregon, Washington are like examples of states that have a little bit they seem to have an easier time with like passing laws that are very rigorous as far as like some of those standards, because there's just they have a lot of existing programs and a lot more experience. And I think some of the bills that have been proposed for like vapes, for example, this year there were like 6, which is quite a lot. There was one last year. So vapes is I feel like a really good example of like where an eco fee would work really well, because there are a lot of products that are single use, made for like they're literally made to just be like used once and then thrown away. And they have like lithium ion batteries in them. It's kind of mind blowing. But the yeah, one of the bills, I think it was like in New Jersey, had an eco fee. Yeah, it was New Jersey. An eco fee that would require manufacturers to pay like more if they're not able to be easily recycled. So, which I'm happy to send over that language, like that bill, if anyone's interested. It's I think it's a good product to like use it as an example, because it's like absolutely not a item that is like critical to anyone's um you know uh like quality of life, whereas like everyone needs a mattress. So yeah, uh I that answer your question?
Yeah, it's probably not what he wanted to hear, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that there isn't enough of that
So
going on.
like,
Not
I
about-
got one questions in my mind. Like, we see like some states have like 2-3 states have some laws for the battery, other states don't have. So, as a EPR policy maker, what are the obstacles do you think like other states are not flowing there? Because we all know that the batteries disposal is very essential for the environment as well as for the public area. Like we can't throw the battery in the landfills because it may catch fires as well. So for the safety of the environment and the people, and also we talk about the paints as well. So we are like in the world of recycling as well, like we're advancing the technology as well. So like, what do you think? Like many like in Missouri, we still have like big, but it not became a law yet. So why other states are not like adapting? We are just lagging. So as a EPR policy, what do you think? Like how can we make like all states involved in it and make a like law in all the categories we're discussing about the mattress, battery, and other like recyclable materials? So what do you think? Like how can we make it like 100, not 100%? How can we make it like up to 80% or 90%?
Did you get that?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's the dream. I think so. I just want to use Canada as an example, because I believe I want to say British Columbia is developing a way to like rather than having individual laws, the way that in the US we have like these bills that for each category they're like pretty different. There's like some different like requirements and it makes sense because they are different products. But the idea in like British Columbia is to develop a framework model that they could just add a product to this framework and it would have like the same effect of like creating a program for that particular product without like generating a whole new bill that has like these different like specific requirements. I mean, they could like adjust it, of course, but the idea would be like, yeah, to make it as easy as possible to just keep adding products and hopefully eventually cover everything. I think one of the biggest products is packaging. And that I have not like touched on because it's such it's a huge one. It's like it's not I'm not like we have a packaging specialist for a reason because it's a very complicated and a difficult product because of like how much like different types of packaging, different stakeholders, like literally every industry you can think of has packaging on their products. So but just it is a very good one to think about, like that kind of eco fee for like, paper versus plastics. There's going to be a huge difference in how those are managed at end of life. And like, I don't know, maybe it's just me because I think in this sphere all the time, but like, I notice the differences in packaging of like things that I buy and I'm like, I wonder if this is in response to like the states or like the growing trend of like seeing packaging EPR programs and who knows. I only have like a couple more slides if it's okay if I finish
sure,
them
go
real
ahead.
quick.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last two slides are just like what can you do or what you can do to help advance product stewardship, either Missouri or in your own state. You can join meetings. So the monthly Missouri PSC meetings are open to anyone who's interested. You can look at our website for different outreach and educational material, and information about current bills. We keep the website up to date with those, and just definitely please get in touch with us and let us know if you have any questions.
From our chat, there was a question if the Mo PSC has a newsletter.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we send out like agendas that usually, like if we have an upcoming in the monthly meetings, we'll send out like upcoming work groups, different events that are coming up, and then just like those have typically like a summary of what the different work groups have been working on. But we have talked about creating a newsletter. Angie, do you want to?
Yeah, so I just want to like make a plug here. Hanz mentioned joining a meeting. We are really trying to improve our outreach and improve our membership and trying to make our organization more sustainable in the long term. So we would love for you to reach out to one of us and get on that meeting contact list. Hanz really does on the agenda do a good job of giving the updates on each work group, which would give you some info on that. As we're trying to expand our organization and improve the outreach, we have considered the idea of a newsletter at some point, just to try to keep the word out. But the best way to be informed is to get on our email list and attend meetings when you can, because we would really love to have you guys. Product stewardship really is the future of waste management. Recycling will help, but it doesn't get us there. We really need to be thinking up the food chain, so to speak, on how we're doing things. So we would love to have you guys as part of the group.
Great, take that info down. I just wanted to tell you, Angie and Hans, that we do have a pretty active and vocal advocate for packaging EPR in the region. And she started a nonprofit to address it. I think that's her nonprofit. Anyways, we'll talk to her and see if she'd be interested in touching base with you and your packaging person. She's really focusing on the soft drink bottlers to start out with.
And she may have already met with you. Jenny went.
Yeah. I think she met with maybe Nadja. She didn't talk to you, did she, Hans? No. Okay. She met with somebody. We would love to bring her into the fold and increase our membership with anybody who's interested in what we're doing.
All right. We'll talk to her about that.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. And thanks, Hans, for calling in from Boston. And Angie, where are you calling in from?
Springfield.
Springfield, cool. Thanks, everybody. We are having another sustainability lab in August. What's our topic?
The greenhouse gas reduction
Oh,
plan.
we'll be covering our East West Gateway's regional greenhouse gas reduction plan that we did with our EPA grant. So hope to see you all for that if you're interested in talking about climate and greenhouse gases reduction. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you
so much.
Thanks for having us.